Got him snoozing. He goes
Glad it
sailing.
would all change.
All sport. Game just got too easy.
The unsurpassed taste of all sport. A third more carbs than Gatorade for energy could make a difference.
Next up,
Your grandson's up.
Ken Griffey IV. He connects. It's going. Watch out, center book. Oh!
Center book got him.
He was robbed.
All sports body quencher. The game will never be the same.
Over the past 3 years, Dodge has offered a choice of more new nameplates than anybody else. Now Dodge offers some other choices that make driving the best-selling Dodge Caravan easy. During the Dodge Buyer's Choice sale, get a new 95 Caravan and choose up to $1,860 in cash savings and values. Or choose an interest rate as low as 4.9%. Or a great Caravan lease rate. The Dodge Buyer's Choice sale. It makes visiting your friendly Dodge dealer a very smart choice indeed.
Locally owned shops mean your dollars stay here at the Metro Center, University in Glen.
Good evening. It's a busy Friday in the HOI newsroom, and here's what you'll see tonight at 6. You won't believe how long the list runs for outstanding warrants in Peoria County. Stay tuned to see how security is getting beefed up at the Peoria County Courthouse. Find out how state police now have easier access to criminal records. Plus, get ready, Liberty Park is about to be turned into a racetrack. Jim Matson has a great idea on keeping cool this summer. Make sure and tune in tonight at 6.
On the question of life or death, the jury's decision in the Susan Smith trial. In Washington, freebies from the lobbyists. The Senate writes itself new rules. And no rules in Moscow, how the video pirates stole Waterworld weeks before its American premiere.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight in Union, South Carolina, where a jury has decided that Susan Smith will not be put to death. It was 9 months ago she first reported that her children had been kidnapped and then admitted she had murdered them. Today, the same jury that took 2.5 hours last week to find her guilty took precisely the same amount of time to decide on her sentence. Here's ABC's Al Dale.
The jury vote was unanimous. The 9 men and 3 women sentenced Susan Smith to life in prison. Her former husband, father of the 2 boys she drowned, had urged the prosecutor to seek the death penalty.
They returned a verdict they thought was justice. Of course, like I said, we are disappointed, but it wasn't our choice on what penalty she was to receive.
Prosecutor Tommy Pope had turned down a plea bargain that would have given Smith the same life sentence.
We have no regrets, as far as what's been done in this case.
Earlier today, in closing arguments, Pope said this is the ultimate crime that deserves the ultimate punishment. Susan Smith made lots of choices that led up to the murder of her sons, Pope said, and she also chose those boys' last meal, their last car ride. Defense attorney David Bruck, in his closing argument, acknowledged that, yes, she had made choices, but the choices didn't make sense, he said. They were irrational. Bruck set out to blunt the prosecution's use of a videotape reenactment of the crime, saying the tragedy happened not in broad daylight, as the video indicates, but in total darkness, matching Susan Smith's total despair. If the sun had been shining, Bruck said, it wouldn't have happened.
There is no good outcome to this case. This case was an awful human tragedy from the beginning, and it still is, and it always will be.
Most of the people in this small town seemed satisfied with the verdict.
I'm from Union, and I felt like most of the majority of the people in Union did not want the death sentence for her.
She don't deserve to die. I was hoping that she would get life and not the death chair.
Susan Smith will be eligible for parole 30 years after the day she was arrested. That'll be November 3rd, 2024. Al Dale, ABC News, Union, South Carolina.
In other news today, on Capitol Hill, the business of image repair. The Senate has voted to put some space between itself and the lobbyists. It's sharply going to limit the value of gifts that members may accept from special interest groups. All 98 senators present voted in favor, none against. But behind the unanimity was a great deal of heated debate. On Capitol Hill this evening, ABC's John Cochran.
In the past, senators could accept gifts worth up to $250 from any one source, and any gift under $100 would not even count toward that total. Now, that will change.
This legislation, make no bones about it, makes some major dramatic changes in how we're going to conduct the daily lives of members of this body.
Although senators argued bitterly about which gifts they should accept, they all knew something had to be done because people back home hold Congress in such low esteem.
They believe that it was hard to refute that we were living high on the hog here.
For one thing, there were those highly publicized trips to resorts paid for by lobbyists. Even though some senators said they went to raise money for charities, it looked bad.
These golf trips, ski outings, and so forth, paid for by special interest, are ended.
The Senate also debated whether they should accept free food, and if so, how much.
All I'm advocating is a rule of reason. $50? Who here can be bought for a $50 dinner?
Finally, a compromise. The new rules put a $100 limit on gifts from any one source in a year, and any gift over $10 would count toward that limit. Although today's vote affects only senators, they said it will put pressure on the House to follow suit.
I hope this sends a message to everyone in elected office in this town that they should pay their own way. That's how you avoid this mess.
Last year, when the Senate voted to keep the perk of free parking at airports, one senator who later decided not to run for re-election said, "The public thinks we are scum." Tonight, though, the Senate is feeling pretty proud of itself. John Cochran, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
In a moment, today's other news, the O.J. Simpson defense finishes off a tough week searching for some controversial tapes in North Carolina. A pirated videotape of a Hollywood epic sets off hard feelings between the U.S. and Russia. And our person of the week, with justice for all.
I'm 62. Can I still help prevent osteoporosis?
It's never too late for Caltrate. New Caltrate Plus has the extra calcium you need, plus 6 nutrients essential for healthy bones, whatever your age.
It's never too late for Caltrate.
Discover the first in a unique class of pain reliever, Zostrix. Even though prescriptions have never been required, doctors prescribe the Zostrix brand more than all other topical arthritis pain relievers combined. Zostrix, physician strength relief, is in your hands.
Life is hectic enough for us women without being irregular. That's why for 40 years women have trusted Correctol for gentle, predictable overnight relief.
Uh-oh, here's the bus.
Who has time for that waiting and wondering? Correctol, the one more women trust.
You love playing with your kids, but it's killing your back. If nothing seems to help, try Dones. It relieves back pain no matter where it hurts. Dones has an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones, a back specialist.
In Los Angeles, the jury at the O.J. Simpson trial had the day off. One of them is sick. The action today was in another part of the country. In a courtroom in North Carolina, the defense has found some tapes of a prosecution witness that it wants the Simpson jury to hear. Here's ABC's Cynthia McFadden.
The first building block of the defense's conspiracy theory is Mark Furman.
Have you used that word in the past 10 years?
Not that I recall, no.
The word is the racial epithet nigger, and tapes on which Mark Furman used it were played in a North Carolina judge's chambers today. Later, the screenwriter who recorded him testified.
I knew that I had heard that word come from him in the context of our work.
But, she said, context is important. Furman used the word to reflect the attitude of her fictional characters, not his own views.
I don't know that it reflects his feelings about African Americans.
Johnny Cochran argued the tapes prove Furman, who testified he did not use the word, is both a racist and a liar.
He committed perjury.
But the North Carolina judge decided the tapes are not relevant and will not be turned over.
And I will deny the subpoena.
We're going to appeal. There's no question.
The Furman decision came at the end of a vitally important week for the defense, in which they presented 2 expert witnesses to bolster their claim that O.J. Simpson was framed.
It is my opinion that the blood stain contained EDTA.
EDTA is a preservative that was added to the blood samples taken from Simpson and the victims. And if EDTA is present on the evidence, the defense says the blood may have been planted. Testimony ended for the week on a high note for the defense with blood spatter expert Herb McDonald.
So that's what a transfer looks like. It's classic.
The implication? That someone planted the blood on the socks. The defense presented the first scientific evidence to support its theory of conspiracy, but cross-examination is far from over. Cynthia McFadden, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Go back to the nation's capital again. In the House of Representatives today, a coalition of Republicans and Democrats has come to the aid of the environment. They have combined to defeat an effort by the Republican leadership in the House to cripple the Environment Protection Agency's powers of enforcement. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
To conservative Republicans, today's bill was a chance to rein in the Environmental Protection Agency.
And the EPA, the Gestapo of government, pure and simply, has been one of the major clawholds that the government has maintained on the backs of our constituents.
So Republicans proposed cutting the EPA's budget by 1/3 and its ability to enforce the laws by half, more than any other major department. But in addition, they added more than a dozen riders or amendments to kill major environmental programs. They wanted to protect oil refineries from certain air pollution standards, cancel a project to clean up the Great Lakes, and stop making factories reveal what chemicals they're releasing into nearby communities.
I tell you today, this is one of the most important votes that we will cast in this Congress.
But even many Republicans said it was going too far to gut specific laws in what was only supposed to be a budget vote.
These riders, I think, really are an affront to the legislative process.
Should we be subjecting the public to environmental dangers as part of an appropriations process that limits the ability of members to fully debate these issues and to vote their conscience? The answer is clearly no.
Sherwood Boehlert co-sponsored a move to eliminate the 17 riders. Shocking the GOP leadership, it succeeded. The House killed the riders by a narrow vote of 212 to 206, with 51 Republicans joining the Democrats. The White House was not gloating. Vice President Gore warning the proposed EPA budget cuts would still be vetoed.
If this bill ever became law, our drinking water would be dirtier, would make more people sick, and would kill more people.
Still, said the administration, today's vote may have been a turning point in the Republicans' effort to roll back environmental laws. Ned Potter, ABC News.
At the congressional Waco hearings today, one of the very few people to survive the fire that destroyed the Branch Davidian compound described the final minutes inside the inferno.
When I stood up, the skin was rolling off my hands. My coat was all melted on my back and smoking. Now, I looked back over my shoulder, and the hole had just come out with a mass of flames. And the first thought that came to me was, I'm the only one.
Clive Doyle's 18-year-old daughter was one of those who did not get out. Other witnesses said today there was overwhelming evidence that the fire was started by those inside the compound. The Space Agency announced late today that it has postponed next week's launch of the space shuttle because, or at least until, it gets to the bottom of the latest controversy about the O-rings. They're the seals on the solid rocket boosters, the one that led to so much trouble on the Challenger, and there have been a couple of difficulties in recent missions as well. So next week's launch is on indefinite hold. We will be back in just a moment.
After taking the measure of the 1994 Lexus LS400, we decided it could use a little extra room in the cabin, so we added more than 5 cubic feet to the interior. Miraculously, without adding a single inch to the exterior, making it the most aerodynamic car sold in America. Impossible? The laws of Lexus state otherwise.
It hurt me to see Mom suffering. She always had an excuse not to see a doctor. It's just the way she is. Finally, the stomach pain got so bad that she had to go. Was she relieved when the doctor said Mylanta?
Nothing soothes away heartburn faster than Mylanta liquid. It's the one doctors recommend most, even over prescription drugs for occasional heartburn and acid indigestion.
My doctor said Mylanta.
For years, people have done their thinking on the run. Now they can do their business on the run, thanks to the breakthrough that fits in your pocket. Zorus, the personal digital assistant from Sharp that gives you the freedom to write it, type it, sign it, and fax it anytime, anywhere.
John, hello mate, just got your fax. But you really should get out of the office a bit more.
Don't you wish we could just do this to air pollution?
we can help. If homes and industries, power plants and vehicles would just switch to natural gas. Clean, economical natural gas. Think what we'll save.
Ma, you've got to get some sleep. Did you get the Unisom I told you? It's not habit forming. Ma, am I going to tell you to take something that isn't safe? All right. I love you too.
This week, his anguished testimony brought a South Carolina courtroom to tears, even the woman guilty of killing his children. Now, the only place you'll hear David Smith's true feelings is in Barbara Walters' exclusive interview.
Do you think that Susan is evil?
Yes.
2020, tonight.
The major news in Bosnia today is that Bosnian Serb forces have suffered a major setback. Most of the news in recent weeks has been about Serbian gains against the Bosnian government army in eastern Bosnia. But this is about the other war. In the northwest today, troops from next-door Croatia have captured the towns of Grohovo and Glamoch, which had been occupied by the Serbs. The Croats are now involved with the Serbs. Here's ABC's Ron Allen.
Serb military forces have confirmed one of their biggest battlefield setbacks in years. These are Croatian soldiers in the town of Grohovo, western Bosnia, after they captured part of a key Serb supply route. The offensive is part of a developing alliance between the Bosnian and Croatian armies focused around the enclave of Bihać. It has been the scene of the most fierce fighting in Bosnia every day this week.
Pretty heavy activity on the northwestern confrontation line in the Bihać enclaves. At least over 1,000 detonations being reported in the first hour. These are very worrying reports.
Worrisome because some 200,000 civilians live in the area. The Serbs are advancing closer to the small UN-protected safe haven in the enclave. Bosnian Serb, Croatian Serb, and rebel Muslim forces are launching coordinated attacks against the Bosnian government. Worrisome also because now Croatia is massing thousands of troops to support the Bosnians. Bosnian government troops are also getting support from Croatia by air. The UN confirms that earlier this week, a cargo plane violated the no-fly zone over Bosnia and delivered supplies to government forces defending Bihać. In the hills above Sarajevo today, where the Serbs are still in control, their gunners tested the resolve of the newly deployed UN Rapid Reaction Force by shelling a convoy on the only route into the city through government territory. That attack came less than an hour after the French commander boasted that the Serbs had not attacked any vehicles on the Mount Igman Road since his forces arrived. Ron Allen, ABC News, Sarajevo.
In Germany today, police commandos stormed a bus in which a man with a gun speaking Russian had taken about 20 people hostage. The gunman shot to death the driver and the passenger before he was killed by the commandos. In a moment, the bones that link man and beast.
Do it better with Mrs. Dash. Do it better with Dash, Mrs. Dash. Do it hot, do it cold, do it spicy, do it bold. Do it better with Dash.
It's the sassy Mrs. Dash blend of 14 herbs and spices that makes flavor bigger, bolder, better. Mrs. Dash, good for food, good for you.
Do it healthy, do it light, do it smart, do it tonight. Do it better with Dash. Yeah, Mrs. Dash.
Hi. I thought you might like a little help. Thanks, my hands.
Should I get your Advil?
I'm trying that new naproxen sodium.
But this has special dosing restrictions for people your age. Your Advil doesn't.
I'm older, 66.
And what if you take this and your pain comes back?
Oh.
You may be in pain for hours before you can take more. Doesn't your doctor recommend Advil for you?
You're right. I'll stick with Advil.
Nothing is proven more effective or longer lasting than Advil. Nothing.
It's Color Tile's summer inventory clearance final week. Below wholesale prices. Some items below cost. 50, 60, 70% off. Sheet vinyl, vinyl tile, price to move. Wall ceramic, 11 choices under $1. Floor ceramic from 39 cents. Wood parquet, lowest price ever, 29 cents. Laminated plank, clearance price, $2.99. Hundreds of carpets, Berbers, plushes, Saxonies, $7.99 to $14.99 installed. Why pay more for any floor? The summer clearance at Color Tile. Sale ends Monday.
Denture wearers don't let anything keep you from getting close. Get Polident. It's loaded with minty mouthwash ingredient. Get Polident fresh and granddaughter close.
Now, Polident saves you time and money. Look for this $1 coupon in Sunday's paper.
Fibricon or Metamucil?
Both give you the same predictable regularity, the same natural action of fiber. So what makes Fibercon different? With Fibercon, I get my fiber in 2 caplets. Fibercon, fiber regularity that's easier to take.
From Africa today, there was news about the missing link in the evolution of mankind. In other words, how did apes come to be people? Deep in a cave near the South African city of Johannesburg, where there have been many important discoveries of early human fossils, paleontologists have now identified 4 tiny bones from a foot. The bones are about 3.5 million years old. They probably belong to an ancestor of humans, believed to look something like this.
This is a true missing link in that it combines a human type of ankle bone with ape-like bones leading up towards the big toe.
The human type ankle indicated the individual could stand up straight. The ape-like bones indicated the individual could climb trees.
It shows us that the earliest upright walking members of the family of man had intermediate features. They were transitional.
In other words, Littlefoot, as they call this discovery, may demonstrate that at one time, long ago, individuals moved about a little like a man and a little like an ape. By way of change, the most expensive movie ever made is open today in theaters around the United States, though you could have seen Waterworld earlier in Moscow. Here's ABC's Gillian Finley.
The picture quality is awful, the sound even worse. The copy of Waterworld available in Russia comes complete with ticking time references. Long before the film was finished, with editing instructions still intact, it was smuggled out of Hollywood. And for the last 6 weeks, thousands of bootleg copies have been on sale in Moscow's kiosks. It's the latest victory for Russia's video pirates, illegal distributors who U.S. studios say cost them $800 million a year in lost profits.
It's kind of like the Wild West, Dodge City, 1876 right now, and we haven't been able to legitimize the market.
This is why. Blank cassettes that cost less than $1 a piece, transformed by the hundreds into movies that will sell on the streets for the equivalent of $5. The owners of this dubbing house say they do pay licensing fees for some titles, but admit more than half they pirate. Take Wolf, starring Jack Nicholson. It was never supposed to be copied. The dubbers say they got their copy from a contact in Los Angeles. And Disney's summer hit, Pocahontas? It's not even out on video in the States yet, but already it's available here. Like Waterworld, stolen, either from the studio or its distributors. Technically, all of this is against Russian law, but to date, there's only been one case of a pirate or a seller being punished. Even the police admit to being confused. I buy the cassettes like anyone else, says a Moscow police spokesman. I don't care how it was brought here or if anyone's rights were violated. But the Russian authorities may have to start caring. 3 months ago, the U.S. Trade Representative's office put Russia on a watch list, the first rung on the ladder to trade sanctions. Still, the Russians do have a point. The originals of these films are coming directly from the States. Somebody there is making a profit too, they say, and also needs to be policed. Gillian Finley, ABC News, Moscow.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials lost about 17 points to close at 47.15, and the trading was moderate. On the NASDAQ market, stocks lost about 5 points. Back in just a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and the Person of the Week are brought to you by Aflac, insuring over 38 million people worldwide.
Lou is our oldest girl. She broke her neck in a car accident. Now she's having fun with her daughter's wedding.
It's been wonderful since the surgery. I don't have to think about my neck anymore. I got Aflac through work. When you need it, it's a blessing.
Aflac covers the unexpected costs of getting better so you can get on with life.
I think she's too young.
I think they're ready.
It's fine with me. I just want a room.
With so many pain relievers today, you might be confused about which ones you choose. You should know Tylenol is different than the ones doctors call NSAIDs. To varying degrees, every NSAID brand can sometimes irritate your stomach. Aspirin can, even ibuprofen can. You may have heard of Aleve with naproxen sodium. That can too. Tylenol won't irritate your stomach the way NSAIDs can. Tylenol is definitely gentler for your stomach. Another good reason to choose Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
Pedigree's come out with a new dog food made specially for my Little Champions. All the beef in Little Champions has gone through the USDA inspection process. The proteins contained are high quality, and they're the building blocks for good nutrition.
Pedigree, developed with vets, recommended by top breeders.
When people find out Imodium AD relieves diarrhea, often in one dose, and now has a new low price, things could get pretty hectic around here. Imodium AD, one dose relief at a new low price.
Finally this evening, our person of the week, the judge who has made a difference. It has been another tumultuous week in the Bosnian tragedy. And once again, we've all heard politicians here and overseas saying how essential it was to do something, even when many of them have no intention of following through on their rhetoric. The person we choose this week is quieter than that, but he has made a difference because he reminds the world that crimes against humanity will not be forgotten.
Justice in all its forms, fundamentally, is acknowledging what victims have suffered.
There is no escape from the suffering for Justice Richard Goldstone. As the chief prosecutor for the United Nations War Crimes Tribunal, every day he must sift through stories that no one should have to hear. What has happened in front of the world's eyes in the former Yugoslavia and in Rwanda, where no one has been watching carefully.
One of the byproducts of justice is avoiding people taking the law into their own hands and wanting to have their own form of revenge.
At the end of World War II, when the world finally acknowledged the scope of the Nazi horror, they put the leaders on trial for crimes that could not be forgiven.
Civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored because it cannot survive their being repeated.
And now in Bosnia, there is so much hatred and so much blood. Now there are concentration camps and mass murder and documented rapes and the endless attacks on civilians. Last July, Richard Goldstone, a South African jurist, was given his job on the World Court.
One of the most important things we have to do is to, by credible evidence, establish what happened in the former Yugoslavia. And that can only be done by eyewitnesses.
There has been more than enough evidence for the World Court to indict the Bosnian Serb leader, Radovan Karadzic, and the Bosnian Serb general, Ratko Mladic, on charges of crimes against humanity. The Bosnian Serbs refuse to recognize the United Nations Authority, and Karadzic sneers at the charges.
There have been said 60,000 women raped many times and so on. Out of those 60,000 rapes, there should be at least 30,000 children. So, where are those children? I'm ready to adopt all of them.
Justice Goldstone's investigators have an office in Sarajevo, but they're not allowed in Bosnian Serb territory. The court in The Hague has no power of arrest, and they cannot try in absentia. Its powers are more symbolic than real for the moment, though the court does reflect the world's conscience. In Rwanda, where a final accounting for the savagery of last summer will probably be impossible, Justice Goldstone still says that justice must be pursued.
Reconciliation and permanent peace will not be established in Rwanda without justice being done.
Richard Goldstone has been committed to justice all of his life. In his native South Africa, he became a lawyer and then a judge whose reputation for fairness helped bring about a peaceful end to that country's official racial divisions. His Goldstone inquiry into the brutality of the South African police changed a great many attitudes on both sides of the racial divide. And it was that reputation which took him to the World Court, now to deal with what is happening in Bosnia and Rwanda. Justice is his watchword.
No victims who've been subject to these sorts of crimes that have been committed can begin the healing process without some form of acknowledgement, without some form of justice.
And so we choose Judge Richard Goldstone of South Africa. With the judge in charge, there is at least a vigorous effort to document the truth. That is our report on World News Tonight. Later this evening on 2020, Barbara Walters' interview with Susan Smith's former husband, David. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good weekend. Good night.